factor. It's not a big difference. It's just the way it's calculated out this month. I think there's probably some sign there that there's a growth of the vote for the minor parties, and how that will wash through as preferences, I'm not sure. But I think to run around on a 1 point difference, which might have been caused by rounding errors, I think everyone's getting a bit excited about what's going on.
So can we say that Scott Morrison is making up ground, or you don't think that can be made from that poll?
I wouldn't say that somebody's making up ground based on something that might just be rounding error. They started the campaign on 52. There's been a couple of polls on 52, and this one comes out at 51 with some issues to do with the calculation. So I'm saying there's not much difference.
Now, you mentioned the United Australia Party and their preferences, and that's coming into play, and obviously with the deal done with the coalition. Now, this is obviously assuming that voters follow the how to vote cards, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone keeps saying a deal. I mean, I'm interested to say that they've justified changing the preference calculation on Newspoll on the basis that this time there is a deal and there wasn't in 2013. Yep. In 2013, the Palmer United parties, every how-to-vote card gave preferences directed towards the coalition. Now, that is what they've promised to do this time, except we've called it a deal this time, and everyone says, therefore, it'll be different. What matters with a how-to-vote card is you stick a how-to-vote card in the hands of every voter. I'm not sure that happened in 2013, who knows? But that's what might change someone's preferences, is sticking a how-to-vote in their hand rather than the deal, because all the deal is about what you print on the how-to-vote card. Without handing out the how-to-vote card, it doesn't matter what the deal is.
And even handing it out doesn't mean people are necessarily going to follow it exactly as well. But what impact will the changes to the Senate voting have, firstly, generally, and what could it mean for deals like the one that Clive Palmer has struck with the coalition for his end of the bargain, which is the Senate? Well,
this is the second election with this new system. At the last election, preferences were less important because of the lower quota. They're more important this time. I think Clive Palmer will get a good deal out of this, because at the last election, coalition preferences were most likely to follow a how-to-vote card. And there was only one state, South Australia, where a major party's preferences were distributed as ticket votes. And that was the one state where there was a big change, because Bob Day defeated Labor's at the last seat, Bob Day from Family First. And that was because it was Liberal preferences that decided it. That may well happen here. In Queensland, with 6 seats up, 2 will be safe for the LNP, 2 safe for Labor. The 5th seat is probably a battle between the 3rd Labor candidate and the Greens, and the other seat is probably a battle between the 3rd LNP candidate, Palmer United, the United Australia Party and Clive Palmer, or Malcolm Roberts from One Nation. They're the 3 parties which are competing. And the trick of the Senate system is with 28% of the vote, you get 2 seats in the Senate. You then have 7% over if you say have 35% of the vote. And that 7% is competing with whatever United Australia Party or One Nation get. So who gets that last seat in Queensland will be determined by which order they're in. Now, if Clive Palmer is polling strongly in Queensland, it's quite likely he will have more votes than the LNP, the 3rd LNP candidate, and therefore he's more likely to benefit. I think his problem in other states is I think it's more likely that the LNP vote will be above the second quota by more than the United Australia Party poll.
Now, what about Pauline Hanson's One Nation? Fair to say that the vote there has collapsed?
Collapsed. It's always been very hard to measure One Nation sometimes. Sometimes their vote has surged very late, sometimes disappeared. I certainly think they are suffering from competition in this election. The United Australia Party is just steamrolling them in large parts of the country with publicity. It'll be interesting to see who has more feet on the ground on the day handing out how-to-vote cards. But certainly they've stolen a lot of the thunder of One Nation. One Nation elected 4 senators last time. They were always going to be in trouble because they have 3 up this time. And I'd say that the President of the United Australia Party has made it very tough for Pauline Hanson's One Nation to re-elect any of their current senators or fill any of the seats they currently hold.
Now, we just saw a moment ago that pre-polling has opened today. What sort of effect does that have on the election outcome and the way the campaigns are conducted and the sort of people that are likely to choose to pre-poll?
Well, it means that they no longer build up towards a campaign in the last week. There's no crescendo in the last week of running around the country and doing something or other. You're probably wasting your time because 35% of people have already voted. So certainly I think you're seeing a lot more spreading out of promises, and certainly rather than big events on a weekly basis or twice a week, what we're seeing is a lot of dribbling out of little announcements day by day. Labor decided to fire a lot of cannons off yesterday, perhaps with the idea that pre-polling was starting today. But we're certainly seeing a lot more moderate-sized promises released on a day-by-day basis on the random routine of travelling around the country to marginal seats and making an announcement.
And more to talk about in the debate tonight as well. Antony Green, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And for all the latest on the election at any time, head to abc.net.au/AustraliaVotes.